Ridley Scott isn't afraid to share his bold opinions, and his must-watch movies might surprise you. From the sci-fi masterpiece that made him so jealous he was depressed for 3 months, to an underdog Australian comedy he's watched 6 times, Scott's list is as unexpected as it is revealing. Back in 2015, while promoting The Martian, Ridley Scott spoke about his top science fiction influences. While many of his other selections were classic pieces of incredibly recognizable genre fiction, his last pick is a much lesser-known work from the late 1950s. On the Beach, based on the Neville Shute novel of the same name, takes place in a dystopian 1960s where a nuclear World War III has decimated much of the Northern Hemisphere, and the only inhabitable city in the world has slowly become Melbourne, Australia. Scott cited the movie as one of the truly original, great films to watch. Ridley Scott had just finished his Cannes Prize-winning film The Duelist when he first saw Star Wars, and George Lucas's space fantasy made him depressed for 3 months. So instead of making another drama as he intended, he agreed to helm Alien, which was offered to him only a few weeks after he saw Star Wars. Quite possibly the most influential movie of the 20th century, A New Hope started the second highest grossing film franchise of all time, a series that has captivated audiences and inspired viewers for generations. Another one of Ridley Scott's film favorites, Quest for Fire, is a critically acclaimed fantasy adventure film based on the 1911 novel. The movie follows a group of prehistoric people who encounter many dangers on their journey to figure out how to create fire after the small one they had been curating goes out. Scott says that Quest for Fire is a film that people don't know is so clever and so brilliant. The film was lauded in the early 80s as being a spectacle of modern technical achievement, winning the Academy Award for Best Makeup and winning Best Film at the French César Awards. When Ridley Scott's mother took him to see Gilda as a kid, it left a mark he'd never forget. In a Deadline interview promoting House of Gucci, Scott recalled, "When Rita Hayworth takes her gloves off and sings, I could never forget that." He also singled out Glenn Ford's performance as the scheming Johnny Farrell, stuck in a toxic love triangle with the unforgettable Gilda and her dangerous husband, Balin Munson. Gilda isn't just another noir. It's the kind of film that grabs you and doesn't let go. Hayworth's femme fatale radiates a mix of seduction and defiance, while Ford matches her with simmering tension that drives the film's drama. It's no wonder Scott couldn't shake it. Gilda is unforgettable.
Gilda, are you decent?
Me? Sure, I'm decent.
It is always a pleasant surprise when a renowned filmmaker proves that they love a wide range of movies. During a director's roundtable discussion in 2015 with The Hollywood Reporter, Scott was asked which single film he would choose to save in a time capsule. He cited the 90s classic Muriel's Wedding, saying, "I've seen it 6 times. It's fantastic." The film follows a delightfully awkward Toni Collette as Muriel, a young woman who runs away from her domineering parents and terrible friends in a fictional American beach town to greener pastures in Sydney, Australia. The movie was nominated for numerous awards in the year it was released, including a Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Comedy or Musical nomination for Collette at the Golden Globes. In 2006, when promoting the Kingdom of Heaven director's cut on DVD, Ridley Scott was asked to name a few of his favorite movies as part of the BBC's Going Direct with Directors series. Not only does Scott cite Seven Samurai as one of his favorite movies of all time, but he also says that, given the chance to see any director at work, he'd like to watch Akira Kurosawa. Seven Samurai follows the titular 7 warriors who are hired by a small farming village that is under attack from invading bandits. The film is often cited as one of the best and most influential movies of all time. In the same 2006 interview with the BBC, the other director that Ridley Scott says he would like to watch at work is David Lean, the British legend responsible for large-scale epics like The Bridge on the River Kwai and Dr. Zhivago. Later in the same interview, Scott mentions that Lean's Lawrence of Arabia is one of his favorite movies of all time. Based on Lawrence's 1926 autobiography, Seven Pillars of Wisdom, Lawrence of Arabia follows the protagonist during the British campaigns in the Middle East as a part of the First World War. It's often cited as one of the best films of all time. Ridley Scott's Blade Runner isn't just a cult classic. It's a game changer. The story of Rick Deckard, a Blade Runner hunting rogue replicants, set the gold standard for dystopian sci-fi. But the version we all know and love? That came after Scott's director's cut fixed the mess left by too many studio notes. At the Alien Romulus premiere, Scott didn't shy away from naming Blade Runner as one of his top 4 films.
Actually, one of mine, Blade Runner, which has set the pace for many, 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 many things. A film that people don't know is so clever and so brilliant.
And he's right. Its influence is everywhere. From Westworld to Detroit, Become Human. In a 2015 Wired interview, Scott summed it up. "I think we really got it right with Blade Runner. It's been a strong influence on lots of other films." One of the best pieces of hard science fiction ever made, A Space Odyssey reworked the often campy genre as a platform for artists to tell far-out stories about the human condition. It's no wonder that Ridley Scott picked it as one of his 4 film favorites during his recent Letterboxd interview, calling the movie seminal to the creation of his own unfeeling artificial intelligence in Alien. A Space Odyssey follows astronaut Dave Bowman as he attempts to survive the murderous intentions of his ship's AI control system HAL 9000 and investigate the signal of an ominous black monolith that is orbiting Jupiter. The film is lauded as being one of the most influential of all time.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Scott says that a list of his favorite movies has to include something by Orson Welles, and would probably have to be Citizen Kane, Welles' first feature, which was a box office disappointment, but a critical sensation in 1941. The movie follows reporter Jerry Thompson as he attempts to uncover the real story behind the meaning of Rosebud, the final word of deceased newspaper magnate Charles Foster Kane. Kane, a loose allegory for real-life media titan William Randolph Hearst, would become one of the most iconic characters in the history of cinema.